Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another part for Final Fantasy IV. We're going to be exploring a few caves today, so it's best we just get right into it. The first area we're going into is actually not required, but it is useful for Rydia specifically, as it's where she lived for the majority of the time in between the Leviathan attack and her rejoining the party. We're going to get a few new summons for her, and then after that, we'll go to a different cave, which is required for the story. There's a little bit after that too, but nothing too important.
Hey, I noticed you did something there where you used float on everyone. What was that all about? Why would you need to float in here?
I'm just going to take an educated guess and say it was meant to prevent the characters from taking damage on some of the floor tiles. I remember something like that happened back in the original Final Fantasy game where everyone had to walk on lava in order to go through a volcano and there was no way around it besides just walking right through it. This seems like a way of avoiding that damage, even if it was a very strange design choice to begin with.
You are correct, Ben. That is what it's for. That and for avoiding some ground-based attacks in battle, but those are much less common.
I'm still kind of stuck on that part about walking through lava. Like, why would someone even do that? What is the purpose of going into a volcano for something? That must be a common thing for characters to do all sorts of strange things when the game designers want them to do.
George, this is the same game that had two characters sacrifice themselves when they didn't have to only to be revealed as alive within the same few minutes of a single video, so I wouldn't put it past them to get killed by a tree branch who shoots lightning in the next game.
Yeah, that very specific example would be weird. Anyway, back to the game, I have to give a little bit of an explanation on what's going on. So the area coming up is called the Land of Summons, and it's where most of the summons end up living, though not exclusively. This is where Rydia was, and it's where she met the king and queen of the area, which we're going to spend a few minutes fighting, since there's not a lot of other reason for coming here, though we are going to pick up the rat's tail, which will be important later.
Hey, I remember a rat's tail a while ago in that other Final Fantasy game where we gave it to Bahamut. Is he here or something?
You are correct, but no, Bahamut is not here, and we won't be giving it to him. We're mainly just looking around to see what's here, fight the king and queen, and then leave.
Wow. So that's two kings and queens that we had to fight in just a couple videos. I guess the other ones you didn't really fight so much as let them attack you, but still. I also imagine most of the next few minutes is going to be discussing how to fight the summons.
That is a good guess, but actually no, I've pretty much accepted that most of these fights are very easy and don't require much strategy, so I'll just say them ahead of time. Asura uses multiple attacks against you, but if you just use Reflect on her every once in a while, she can't heal herself like she normally would, and Leviathan uses Tidal Wave, but as long as you use Jump for Cain and keep everyone at a decent level, they're not that difficult. I wanted to give us time to discuss something new here to mix things up a little bit more.
Oh, thank you, Barack. I appreciate you thinking about that for us. I was about to go on a tirade of how dumb this game is for keeping Yang and Sid alive, but maybe I won't do that. I was actually wondering something for the sake of a thoughtful discussion. I was thinking about the Purge and was considering the legal ramifications on if that were to actually happen in the real world.
That is very unlike anything we normally talk about, but sure. For those of you who don't know, The Purge is basically a movie series where there's a 12-hour span of time that all crime is legal, though you still can't harm certain high-ranking people in the United States.
I hadn't really thought about it before, I just thought it was a weird movie. I wasn't really considering what would actually happen if you did certain things. Like, for example, if I were to put a bomb inside a building during the Purge, but it blew up and hurt people after it already ended then, would that still be illegal?
That is an interesting question. I think it still would be illegal as the part that actually killed people didn't start until after it was over, but since you would have only acted on it during the Purge timing, I'm not completely sure.
Yeah, I don't really know on that. Hypothetically, if I needed to use some nukes on some states I thought would cause Donald to get more votes in the election, could I be impeached for that? Is it right to impeach someone for a crime that happened during the Purge at all? Again, I probably won't do that, but I was wondering. Hey, Donald, you know all about impeachments. What do you think?
I am completely in support of impeaching you, so I say yes, but I'm probably a little biased. I was thinking, let's say I shoot someone with a gun, but I fire the gun 1/1,000,000th of a second before the Purge ends, and it hits them right after it ends. Is that still illegal since the main damaging part happened afterwards? It's just a similar answer to the bomb one now that I think about it.
I think the same idea would apply there. You're probably right. I was thinking, let's say someone crosses the border illegally and it happens to be on the Purge time. Are they able to get deported since the act of crossing the border at that point wasn't illegal then? Even if they are faced with being deported, could the other country they're being deported to fight against that at all? I wonder how other parts of the world view this if it's just happening in the United States.
If I had to guess, it would likely be fine for them to stay, but I don't really know. I've got something different. Let's say I kidnap someone during Purge time and I keep them for several days afterwards. Is it still considered illegal because I did kidnap them when it wasn't illegal but continued it later? I don't know if it's all considered one illegal action or if it's looked at differently because it's an ongoing crime.
All right, I've got one. What if I steal someone else's popsicle? Is that bad?
Well, morally, yes, that would be bad, but that's by far the most tame example so far. George, I think that still would be illegal as it's continuing. Granted, none of us have formal legal authority to say whether this is the case, so I don't think we'd have a clear answer.
Guys, I think there's a different way to look at this. So typically in the court system, you're innocent until proven guilty, and it's on the accuser's end to prove a crime happened. I'm curious how, if at all, that would be different here. In these situations, it's not really a matter of if they are a crime or not, since these examples are objectively seen as crimes. It's just a matter of if they should be punished or not.
Oh yeah, that is pretty weird. I wonder who the burden of proof would be on. Let's say I steal someone's wallet right around the end of the purge time, but neither me nor the wallet's original owner knew what time it was exactly was when it happened, and it went to court. Who would the court side with if there was no proof either way?
Yeah, that leads into what I was thinking with the fact the crime being done isn't the question as yes, you are guilty of what happened, but I wonder if that guiltiness in itself would cause the favor to go to the accuser despite no possible proof being done.
This is all pretty complicated, so I don't think I'm going to do that nuke thing just to be safe.
Joe, we're not actually planning on these things, and the purge isn't real. You would still be in legal trouble anyway.
All right, this makes me curious outside of the scope of the United States. Let's say I upload some sort of illegal video online and anyone in the world can see it. Can the anyone in the United States take it down as it's not illegal, or do all of the copyright and user agreements on sites still apply for not doing those things?
All right, before we continue with this discussion, this sealed cavern is required, and it's Luca's necklace that opens it. There's a lot of trap doors, but we'll skip most of them. Anyway, George, let's say you put that illegal video onto YouTube. I'm pretty sure the videos can still be blocked in specific countries, though I'm not sure if that would actually happen, as I don't think those individual countries have to manually request for YouTube staff to take a video down or limit the people who see it, though I don't know for sure. It probably would stay up until the purge time ends.
Hey, now that I think about it, I don't think that the purge allows explosives due to the weapon class it's in. Have any of you actually watched the purge movies at all?
Oh, this came from a movie? I was just signing the documents to make this a real thing just yesterday. I thought that's what you were talking about. And I think I may have read it said 12 months per year rather than 12 hours per year.
Ben, to answer your question, no, but Joe, more importantly, you just signed something that is going to make crime legal for the entire year. Sometimes I don't know how you got the presidency with things like this.
I'm about to get myself ready to go into the bunker, but before I did that, it's time for the question of the day. What crime would you commit if the purge was real?
No, that is not the comment question of the day. We're going to get so many illegal and horrible answers. The actual question is, what is your favorite Final Fantasy character? Not even from this game, but across the franchise is good. There's a lot of really well done ones that stand out across the decades.
Certainly not any of these ones where they die and come back 20 minutes later with no reason on how they survived.
I think a couple of them are all right. I think the story of Cecil is nice, where he learns to move past his awful actions at the beginning of the story, and Cain with his difficulties with being controlled. Hey, Barack, isn't there some sort of sequel to this game? I think I heard about that once or so. I'm not sure if that's something you wanted to play or talk about.
Yeah, I suppose I can talk about it in more detail. I don't plan on ever playing it for the channel, so there's not much point in hiding what happens to an extent. I'll try not to spoil much of what happens in this game to talk about it. Quite a while after this game was released, there was a sequel called Final Fantasy IV: The After Years on the Wii, where you could buy individual episodes of character stories for a few dollars. Later on, it was released on the PlayStation Portable, but as a whole game rather than separate parts, and a 3D remake on Steam. I suppose it was also on iOS and Android devices, but let's be real, maybe 5 people played it on there, much less finished it. The game adds new stories onto characters and introduces some unique characters, such as a group of ninjas with Edge and children of the current cast. They explore areas in new ways, but a lot of it feels like the same because a lot of the time they are straight up reusing the original map design. To be completely fair, there are new sections to existing maps, so it's kind of new, but even then, I can't say it's really better.
George, this is why you don't ask Final Fantasy questions to Barack, because he never stops answering them.
There are some actually good story moments for characters like Cain and Golbez that make things almost seem worthwhile, though it's a very small amount of time compared to most of the game where it's retreading previous content. Cecil is not done well because he spends most of the game not responsive to other characters and acting very strangely compared to this game. There's also another type of character that looks a lot like Rydia but is otherwise not connected. Most of the other cast members don't go through a lot that justifies having a few hours all to themselves, in my opinion. Gameplay-wise, it's mostly the same, though there are some new combinations of attacks by using specific characters that does make it worthwhile to try variations of party members. In addition, there's phases of the moon which affect how powerful certain types of attacks become, which I don't think was necessary, as it just complicates things by making certain strategies less viable if you don't have the right timing of the moon. If you have to play this game, I would recommend the PlayStation Portable version. The Wii Shop channel isn't open anymore, so that isn't an option, and the PlayStation Portable version comes with the original game. The 3D version isn't all that bad, but the battles go by more slowly in general, and also cuts out a lot of boss fights in the last section. When you get to the moon in the sequel for the 2D versions, there are fights from enemies across Final Fantasy 1 through 6, but in the 3D version, they cut out entire sections and only left in the ones from Final Fantasy 4. I think this is so they didn't have to make new 3D models and could just use the old ones again when they could.
Wow, Barack, that was a really interesting description of a game none of us are ever going to play. I'm glad you shared that with us. Did anything happen in the game that's important at all?
Yes, actually, we finally got a crystal, and now we're going to fight this wall that just comes up out of nowhere. Well, I guess it doesn't come from nowhere, but I'm not sure why it's attacking only after we got the crystal rather than before it.
Hold up now, Barack, I'm a little skeptical on how this wall works. So we were going from the door down to the bridge towards the bottom of the screen, and now we're fighting the demon wall. I am not sure how this is even a threat realistically. It's only coming from one direction, which is the way all of the other characters were coming from. This logically would mean the way through the bridge is still accessible and the characters could just run away and actually be in a much better condition since they don't have to fight this. The only way I could see this being a threat is if we did have more than one wall, so hypothetically, let's say that was the case. The wall would have to come from the direction of the bridge, so that would trap the characters, though in that case there would be two walls to fight, which is clearly not the case. Even if it was coming from only the side of the bridge, that would be very unusual since the battle area should have a bridge present to show they're on it, but they're not. And really all of this is absolutely useless, as Rosa can use her teleport ability to get everyone out of here with no difficulty since she's done it before, and I don't see why she can't again. We should just skip to the end. I don't want to see this illogical, sad excuse for a boss fight on screen anymore.
You talked through the whole fight, Ben. It's already defeated before I could make a single joke about it being a wall, because you know how I am with walls.
That might actually be for the best, Donald. Good job, Barack. It didn't look all that difficult, but you still did fine. I'm guessing the wall would have ended the whole party if it got close enough.
You are right on that, George. In the game, you have to walk all the way back to the beginning, but for the sake of the viewers and us, I'll skip ahead to the end.
Thanks for considering us there. I hope the crystal is safe with us.
Are you actually serious? We got the crystal not even 2 minutes ago and it already got lost. Has the party had any crystal for half an hour cumulatively across the whole game yet? I swear their level of success is so low it's making Joe's approval rating seem high by comparison.
Unfortunately, no, Ben, the characters here are really bad with holding on to the crystals. In fact, I don't think they'll get them back at all for the remainder of the game, except for maybe one more time at the very end, but I don't want to spoil much. Anyways, now Golbez has the crystals, so everyone else is left to return to the castle down here and report the fact they failed massively.
I think they could get Sid to show up and help. I know he was in an explosion a while ago, but that didn't stop him from surviving. He's probably good enough to work on an airship right now.
I'm surprised he hasn't tried to fight Golbez himself. After all, the characters can't get the crystals safely for the life of them, and everybody except for Anna and Tella can just escape death when they please.
And would you look at that, there's Sid right here, just like Joe said. I know we've complained about the game's story quite a bit, so I really don't mean for it to be annoying to the viewers, listen to me, or anyone else complaining of a game that was released decades ago, but this game really makes no sense, and I struggle to think how this ended up being the final product. I can only imagine the other versions and their script didn't have much else to work off of, so I feel bad for those who had to translate it and not be able to fix any of the weird story decisions.
Yeah, at some point, even someone like me who really likes this game has to admit there could have been more edits to the story to make it more sensical. I don't think there would have been an issue with a lot of the character deaths, for example, if there was a more specific reason why they needed to happen, or even if they just made them stick rather than be fake outs twice in a row. It was probably hindered by the fact it was on the Super Nintendo originally, but even later games in the series on the same system handled these plot issues much better by comparison.
Hey, now that I think about it, I don't think we've talked about much else this episode. Most of the first half was just talking about the Purge, and the last half was mostly about how this game doesn't make sense, which we've already talked about extensively. This seems like one of those filler episodes in anime where not a lot really happens. I mean, the summons were fine, and the net crystal amount for Cecil and his group is the same, but Barack probably won't use those summons much, if at all.
I think I may have made the Purge legal all year, though, which is kind of concerning, so I hope that doesn't cause any problems for us later on.
I mean, it probably is more of a big deal than we're making it out to be.
Maybe we can focus on the game and not worry about that right now. Barack, is there anything left that's really important before we're done here?
No, this is just getting an item from Yang's wife, which will wake him up and then get us a summon called Sylph, though I don't think I actually use it. Nothing else important happens right now.
We can end the video in just a moment then. Make sure to check up on further announcements on when that Purge thing I sent through gets started so you can do whatever it is that people do in that time.
I personally won't be doing much but hiding out in Mar-a-Lago while getting rid of a few documents in my bathroom during that time.
We hope people ended up enjoying our rather strange discussions today. It was a fun time, as always, to be around you all.
It was a decent time altogether. Thank you all for your continued support by viewing the channel.
There's only a few parts left until we're done with the game. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people.